Detroit. In American thought, it is a city of extremes. Thundering assembly lines and silent factories, Motown melodies and economic melancholy. They call it the Motor City, the arsenal of democracy, and the Paris of the Midwest. But beneath the corroded news cycles and the narratives of financial collapse lies a story that the mainstream media consistently fails to tell. Detroit is and has always been a mecca of black dynastic wealth in the northern United States. We are not talking about Instagram rich. We are not talking about a rapper who bought a mansion. We are talking about families, industrial clans who stayed when the corporations fled, who bought the blocks when they were burning, who built empires in sectors that once told them they were not welcome. These are not individuals who struck it rich. These are bloodlines who multiplied wealth across generations, turning grit into governance and hustle into legacy. We are counting down the 10 wealthiest black families in Detroit, the dynasties who do not just live in the city, they own it. Wait until you see number 1. This is a family whose business empire generates more annual revenue than most countries have in their treasury. Number 10, the Winans family, the Gospel dynasty. To understand the soul of Detroit, you must first understand its sound. No family has owned the sound of Detroit's black spiritual life more completely than the Winans. This is not just a famous singing family. This is a vertically integrated faith corporation that turned worship into one of the most globally recognized brands in music history. David and Dolores Winans raised their children in the choir stands of Detroit's churches, but what they were really doing was building the foundation of a publishing empire. When BB, CC, Marvin, Carvin, Michael, and Ronald stepped out of the house and onto the national stage, they did not just carry a family name, they carried a catalog. In the music business, the catalog is the crown jewel. The Winans wrote their own music. That single decision separated them from the gospel artists who interpreted other people's songs and made them one of the most consistently paid families in modern Christian music. Royalties from a catalog that has been sung in tens of thousands of churches across 4 decades represent compounding, inexhaustible income. Every Sunday service, every funeral, every revival that plays a Winans song is a royalty payment. Multiply that by the global church, and the numbers become staggering. But the family did not stop at music. They diversified into books, television, merchandise, and the faith-based consumer market, using their name as a seal of trust in a community that spends billions on anything it believes in. The Winans family built their empire not on steel or oil, but on something far more durable. They built it on belief, and in Detroit, that has always been a bankable currency. Number 9, the Archer family, the political architects. If the Winans represent the soul of Detroit, the Archer family represents its central nervous system. Power in a city like Detroit is not just about money, it is about access. No black family has controlled access to the corridors of corporate and political power in this city more completely than the Archers. Dennis Archer built his career at the precise intersection of law and politics. Before becoming the mayor of Detroit in the 1990s and attracting billions in new downtown investment, he became the first person of color elected president of the American Bar Association. That position alone opened doors that no amount of cash could purchase. It delivered corporate board seats, international legal networks, and the kind of institutional credibility that turns a lawyer into a kingmaker. Corporate directorships at companies like CompuWare and Johnson Controls came with stock grants, retainers, and most importantly, the relationships that fueled generational wealth. But the real genius of the Archer dynasty is how it transferred. His son Dennis Archer Jr. did not just inherit a famous last name. He built Archer Corporate Services into a marketing and logistics powerhouse that serves the automotive and healthcare industries dominating the region. He became a prominent force in the redevelopment of Detroit's downtown corridor, placing the family's fingerprints on the physical transformation of the city. The Archer wealth is institutional. It is built on understanding who makes decisions, how laws are written, and where the next billion-dollar deal is being hatched. In Detroit, when you want to do serious business, the Archers are on the call list. That access is worth more than any single transaction. Number 8, the Barfield family, the workforce visionaries. While the major automakers were obsessing over engines and chassis, the Barfield family identified a far more valuable commodity. They saw the people who build the machines. John Barfield was a custodian who became a prophet. In 1977, he founded the Piston Group on a deceptively simple premise. The biggest companies in America needed a smarter, more flexible way to manage their technical and engineering talent. This was not a temp agency. This was a managed services provider that embedded itself directly into the human resources infrastructure of Fortune 500 corporations. The model was elegant in its stickiness. Once you are running the workforce management system for General Motors or Blue Cross Blue Shield, you are not a vendor. You are a structural dependency. The Barfield family built that dependency deliberately. Under the leadership of John Barfield Jr., Bartech became one of the largest minority-owned workforce management firms on the planet, overseeing billions of dollars in labor spend annually. The genius of this business model is its resilience. In an economic downturn, companies do not eliminate flexible labor. They need more of it. Bartech was recession-proof by design. When the family eventually sold the company to the Impelum Group, the exit created a liquidity event that cemented their financial standing in the upper tier of Detroit's black wealth hierarchy. Today, the Barfield legacy has transitioned into diversified investments and significant philanthropy. But their enduring contribution is a lesson. In an industrial city, the most valuable factory is the one that produces trained, deployable human beings. Number 7, the Barden family, the high-stakes gamblers. There is bold, and then there is Don Barden. The late patriarch of this family was not simply a businessman. He was a calculated disruptor who forced his way into industries specifically designed to keep men like him out. His entry point was cable television. In the 1980s, when most people saw cable as a novelty, Barden was building Barden Cablevision, wiring the streets of Detroit and Inkster and creating one of the first black-owned cable franchises in the country. When Comcast came calling and wrote a check worth more than $100 million, most men would have considered the journey complete. Don Barden was just warming up. He became the first African-American to own a casino in Las Vegas, a conquest so historic it belongs in every textbook about black economic achievement in America. The gaming industry was a closed, tightly regulated world where race and access were inseparable. Barden did not ask for a table. He bought the house. His gaming empire, Majestic Star, expanded into Indiana, Mississippi, and Colorado. Casinos generate fast, liquid wealth at a scale that few industries can rival. The house advantage means the revenue never truly stops. After Don Barden's passing, his wife Bella Barden and the family managed the estate through a period of transition. Assets evolved and some were sold, but the Barden name remains one of the most consequential in the history of black business. They represent something crucial: the willingness to bet everything on a future that others refuse to imagine. Number 6, the Bing family, the men of steel. Dave Bing had 2 careers. In the first, he was an NBA Hall of Famer, a Detroit Piston legend who glided through defenses with the elegance of a man who made the impossible look inevitable. In the second, he walked into the most brutally competitive industrial sector in America and built a manufacturing dynasty from scratch. In 1980, Bing founded Bing Steel. He did not want a celebrity business arrangement. He wanted to be a legitimate player in the automotive supply chain, the beating heart of the Detroit economy. He used his NBA earnings as seed capital and then invested something far more valuable than money. He invested years of obsessive learning. He studied metallurgy. He mastered stamping and processing logistics. He went to the factory floor when his competitors were going to the golf course. The Bing Group grew into a Tier 1 supplier for the automotive giants, processing and delivering metal components at a scale that generated hundreds of millions in annual revenue. Industrial wealth like this is heavy and difficult. It requires massive capital investment, razor-thin margins, and the operational discipline of a military general. But once built, it creates a competitive moat that is nearly impossible to cross. When Bing later became mayor of Detroit and helped steer the city through bankruptcy, he brought to that office what the boardroom had given him: the understanding that survival requires reinvention. The Bing family proved that in Detroit, the deepest wealth is forged in fire, not fame. Number 5, the James family, the supply chain kings. John James is a man who went to war twice, first in Vietnam, where he served his country, and then in the courtrooms of the United States, where he fought for the right to do business. When he returned from combat and tried to haul auto parts for a living, the regulatory system put up walls specifically engineered to shut out minority trucking operators. James did not accept that verdict. He sued. He fought his case all the way to the Supreme Court, and he won, securing the right to operate statewide and establishing the legal precedent that opened the door for an entire generation of minority logistics operators. That lawsuit was the foundation of James Group International, one of the most sophisticated supply chain and logistics companies in the automotive sector. If you drive a Ford, a Chrysler, or a General Motors vehicle, there's a high probability that JGI managed the movement of the parts that assembled it. Logistics is the invisible circulatory system of the global economy. By controlling the flow of components across international borders, the James family positioned itself as a non-negotiable partner to the most powerful manufacturers in the world. The family has executed one of the cleanest generational transfers in Detroit business history. John's sons, Lauren and John E. James, stepped into leadership and expanded the company's reach into new sectors and technologies. The father kicked down the door with a lawsuit. The sons turned the opening into an empire that is the definition of dynastic momentum. Number 4, the Jackson family, the retail billionaires. To call Gregory Jackson a car dealer is to call Henry Ford a mechanic. Technically accurate, profoundly misleading. Jackson is a retail architect who transformed the concept of a black-owned auto dealership from a local neighborhood business into a billion-dollar industrial operation. As the founder of Prestige Automotive, Jackson became the first African-American car dealer in history to generate $1 billion in annual revenue. Read that sentence again, $1 billion. He moved through dealerships that he owned, managed, and had quietly clustered into a dominant portfolio across the Detroit metro area. His strategy was built on aggregation. He didn't settle for one franchise. He acquired Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, Cadillac, and Ford stores, grouping them into a self-reinforcing ecosystem where one customer's journey through the purchase, financing, trade-in, and service cycle could generate returns at every single step. In the dealership world, the profit is not simply in the transaction of selling a car. It is in the financial products, the service contracts, the used vehicle pipeline, and most critically, the real estate the dealership occupies. By controlling the land and the operations simultaneously, the Jackson family captured the full value chain of the automotive consumer relationship. They represent something that Detroit rarely produces outside of the manufacturing floor. A billion-dollar retail dynasty built not by making the product, but by being the indispensable last mile between the factory and the driver. Number 3, the Pickard family, the diversification gurus. If there is a single living blueprint for how to build indestructible black wealth in America, it belongs to Dr. William Pickard. His origin story begins with a McDonald's franchise, the kind of business that most people dream of owning and few scale beyond. For Pickard, it was a classroom. He studied the operational systems of corporate America with the precision of a researcher and then applied those systems to an entirely different playing field. He founded Global Automotive Alliance, a holding company that manufactures fuel systems, injection molding components, and interior automotive parts. The company grew into a juggernaut with billions in career sales, placing Pickard in rooms where the guests were Fortune 500 CEOs who had never considered sharing that table with a black man from Detroit. But what makes the Pickard family's wealth uniquely fortress-like is the deliberate refusal to depend on any single sector. Pickard became a co-owner of the MGM Grand Detroit Casino, securing a position in the city's most consistent revenue-generating entertainment venue. He invested in media as a co-owner of the Michigan Chronicle, the historic black press institution that shapes the narrative of the community. He moved into real estate and pharmaceuticals, constructing a portfolio of income streams that reinforce each other through every economic cycle. His philosophy, captured in his book Millionaire Moves, is simple and devastating in its wisdom. Any fool can make money. It takes a wise man to keep it. The Pickard family keeps it because they never allow a single downturn to define them. Number 2, the Gordy family, the cultural architects. You cannot compile any list of Detroit's greatest dynasties without stopping, setting down your pen, and bowing deeply to the name that planted the city on the global map permanently, Gordy. What Berry Gordy accomplished with an $800 family loan is not just a business story. It is one of the defining achievements in the entire history of American capitalism. Tamla Records became Motown Records. Motown became a cultural weapon that integrated the American airwaves during the most racially explosive era in the nation's history. Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, The Four Tops, these were not just artists, they were assets. But the true genius of the Gordy family's wealth was a decision that most people missed while they were dancing. Berry Gordy understood that the singer performs a song once, the publisher owns it forever. He established Jobate Music, Motown's publishing arm, and filled it with the copyrights to some of the most played songs in human history. When Gordy sold the Motown record label in 1988, critics said he left money on the table. They were looking at the wrong table. He kept Jobate. He kept the blueprints after selling the factory. When he eventually sold a portion of that publishing catalog, the return dwarfed the original label sale many times over. The Gordy family's wealth has cascaded through generations and continues to fund ventures in technology, real estate, and modern entertainment. Their fundamental contribution, however, is irrefutable. They prove that owning the culture is the most profitable position in any economy. As long as there is music, the Gordy family gets paid. Number 1, the Johnson family, the industrial billionaires. And finally, we arrive at number 1. This is the family that operates the largest privately held black-owned manufacturing company in the United States of America. And they command a business empire so vast that its annual revenues place it among the most powerful industrial operations in the entire country, regardless of race. If you watched NBA basketball in the 1980s, you knew Vinny the Microwave Johnson. He was the Detroit Pistons' sixth man who came off the bench already hot, poured in buckets at the most critical moments, and helped deliver back-to-back championships to a city that desperately needed something to celebrate. While his teammates were spending championship money on the symbols of success, Vinny Johnson was studying the industry that built everything around him. When he retired, he did not launch a clothing line or open a restaurant. He went to the factory floor. In 1995, he founded the Piston Group. This was not a celebrity business. This was a Tier 1 automotive supplier that bid for, won, and executed contracts against the most established industrial firms in the Midwest. Johnson learned the science of just-in-time delivery, the discipline of assembling cooling systems, chassis modules, and interiors, and delivering them to the production line in perfect sequence. Automakers do not forgive delays. One missed delivery can shut down a billion-dollar assembly operation. Johnson built a company the industry came to rely on completely because he built it on accountability. Today, the Piston Group generates annual revenues that have surpassed $3 billion. $3 billion. That number places the Johnson family in a category of wealth that virtually no entertainer, athlete, or celebrity in Detroit's history has approached. And unlike a publicly traded company where the founder owns a diluted fraction, Vinny Johnson owns the Piston Group, the entire enterprise, which means the Johnson family's net worth reflects the full compounding value of 3 decades of industrial dominance. The The Piston Group subsidiaries, including Piston Automotive, Urban Automotive, and AIA, employ thousands of workers across the Midwest, making the Johnson family one of the largest private employers of black workers in the manufacturing sector in the nation. Vinnie Johnson does not appear on reality television. He does not host press conferences about his net worth. You find his name on the Forbes list of America's largest private companies, which is the only leaderboard that matters. He took the championship mentality of the bad boy Pistons, the grit, the discipline, the refusal to lose when the moment was largest, and applied it to the most unforgiving battlefield in American capitalism. In a city the world spent decades writing obituaries for, the Johnson family built a $3 billion monument to what happens when a champion refuses to walk off the court. From the gospel catalog of the Winans to the assembly lines of the Piston Group, these 10 families tell the real story of Detroit. It is not a story of ruin, it is a story of dominion. They looked at a city the rest of the world abandoned and saw something no one else could. They saw ownership. They took the steel, the sound, the struggle, and the sheer nerve of the Motor City and converted it into generational gold that will outlast any economic cycle or political administration. Which of these Detroit dynasties impressed you the most? Was it the courtroom courage of the James family, the catalog genius of the Gordys, or the sheer industrial scale of Vinnie Johnson's empire? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden geography of black wealth across America and around the world, hit that like button and subscribe. The next dynasty we uncover might be right in your own backyard.